Hello everyone, this is another in the vintage airplane kits that I have. This one is sort of a great box, but a started kit. But I'm not going to argue with anybody because the box is in still really good condition along with the painting. The artwork is not faded. Pretty good example for a 1969. We'll look here in a minute on the side of the box to see what date it is, but it's the 60s. It's a good sturdy box. This is 48 scale. DOOLITTLE RAIDER b-25B. When this kit came out, it was more than the regular 72nd scale I was used to, as much as a 32nd scale fighter. But the detail in it, to me, was highly impressive. It had the top dorsal turret, and it had the Speary belly turret. It had the nose guns. It had a highly detailed engine in it. It had a nice looking cockpit that you could paint, and you know, you didn't have a lot of you didn't have any photo etch, and if you made anything, it was cutting it out of plastic cardstock and other things. But if you took your time and really painted with, you know, micro brushes and everything else, you could really do a number on a 48th or 32nd scale cockpit, the instrument panel and the seats and everything else. And you could take, I used to take tan masking tape that my dad would tape the mechanical drawings that he would draw at his office down, and take that and cut it into thin strips and fold it over onto each other in a thin strip of tape. Had the right texture, and then use that as the seatbelt harnesses and stuff like that. Make little pieces of plastic to simulate buckles and stuff like that. We'd cut out. My mom used to sew things back together, and she had some materials that were sort of like a foam, and you could actually take that and make a seat cushion out of it, paint it yellow, and then get a real nice pin and put U.S. Air Corps on it or something like that to look like the seat cushions. But so when you got to the 48 scale and 32nd scale, it opens you up, and as I got older, I could do more with a kit. Once again, I was using all paints for applying, and over the time learning that you really had to wash the model down, make sure all the finger grease or release agent was off of it. But once that was done, the oil paint, except for taking a long time to dry, was great, and really smooth and easy to work with. And it wasn't until I got older and I could afford to buy my first airbrush and little teeny compressor that I got proficient in putting what I considered super paint jobs on them. And I remember getting one of the airbrushes that went down to a 32nd of an inch line, and you could put some streaking and some other stuff, because I watched those guys at my dad's work on illustrations, airbrushing photos to put into catalogs for the illustrations for machinery. Anyway, we'll take a look at this one. Let's see what this box top holds. It says Revell 1968. Gives you the facts about the Tokyo Raid and the B-25s. It's the model scaled from aircraft at the Air Museum, Ontario, California. Very proud of that fact. Command plane of the DOOLITTLE Raiders. It was H285-2 300. I wonder what the real number was underneath this thing. Huh. And this one had movable and retractable lower turret with 3 crew figures, detailed right cyclone engine with removable cowlings, and optional position bomb bay. And that's where I would stick the batteries into for when I motorized it. And that was a big treat for me. Once I was able to learn how to do it, I tried to motorize everything that was molded. It was just, I specifically wanted to get the Nichimo 1/30th scale tanks from a long time ago, and some of the other Tamiya old kits that had the metal gearboxes in them, and once you got one of those, you could stick them into whatever tank you wanted to with some modifications. As long as you had some plastic stock and some glue, you could make just about any kind of a platform inside or do whatever you wanted to do. But again, this box art to me is very impressive. It's not as good as some of the ones we've seen, but I liked it a lot. I liked the scenery and the action pose and the action going on inside of it. As I said, I was a sucker for box art, but I did love this one. And you know, growing up, you heard so much about the Doolittle raid and everything else and what heroes they were. And so when this one came out, this may have been the first 48 scale B-25. I know monograms didn't come out till years later in the 70s. I don't think that accurate miniatures ones came out until the 80s or 90s. So I think this was it at the beginning. A lot of people spent the time moving the turret up and trying to make them into J models and fixing the tail to have a tail turret with a raised plexiglass, and then filling the hole in the bottom of the belly and cutting side windows and everything else. And some guys were really good at that. That was just too much for me. I wanted a well-built model with a great paint job on it and something I could set in the mire and look at and pick things up, because you didn't have to worry about the fragility of the pieces that you had altered and stuck back together to make it look like what you wanted. But overall, it was a great kit for its day. Enjoyed building them, especially having the engine detail and everything else. The cowlings were big enough that you could drill a hole in the backside of the engine and stick the small motor back into the fuselage, into the nacelle, and then wire it all up into the bomb bay. And it took some work, but it was a lot of fun. And when you were able to flip the little switch, you'd find a switch in some kit. Lindbergh made a lot of motorized kits that you could use, that you could get the switches and some things out of. And some people, you could go down to the hardware store and get these little plunger switches that were really neat. And the guy down the street could solder the wires on for me. He had a soldering iron and did a lot of brass models, so he would do those for me. But just love these kits, and motorizing was the big thing. Tanks, cars, anything you could stick a motor in. And so I hope you've enjoyed looking at it as much as I have shown it to you and telling you about it. But anyway, you all have a good evening. Be safe. Talk to you all later. Thank you for watching. If you would like, you enjoyed this, please hit the like button and maybe subscribe. I'll be putting more stuff out. And once again, thank you so much. You all have a good evening. Be safe. Talk to you later. Bye.